It's finally happened, James. It's finally happened. It's medieval themed! Finally, Tues Your Own Adventure is medieval themed!
Did I really have to dress up like this?
Of course you did, mate. It's medieval themed!
But this was so expensive.
Yeah, it was a bit of a cost to the budget, wasn't it, really?
You better not change the theme next week.
Would I do that?
Yeah, you would.
Hello all of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Tues Your Own Adventure, the medieval themed format where I, the crown Jules of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you, yes you the person who went up to Newcastle recently to film some very silly videos, couldn't you tell, and I took a bit of a souvenir. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week, and this week we have none other to thank than Starscream Sniper 926. Apparently there are 925 other versions of a Starscream Sniper, and their suggestion, thank you very much my friend, for 10 times that you were the villain but became the hero by the end. Well, I applied my YouTube trickery to that title and came up with something that I hope that you will enjoy, my liege, because today I'm talking about video game villains that were actually the hero all along. Now, being a video game hero is pretty much the apex of any video game experience. If you can create a memorable, relatable, and engaging hero and then give them a quest worthy of the player's time and emotional engagement, well, you're going to do very well indeed. But unfortunately, the market is getting a bit crowded right now. There are way too many heroes, and now there's even villains that are trying to muscle in on the heroic spotlight. That's right, sometimes video game villains, either because of a change of heart or because they were always working for good all along, have dropped the turncoat and put on the party hat to join the big beatdowns offered out to the other antagonists of the piece. So let's give it up for those who may have stumbled from time to time on the path of the righteous but turned to the forces of good when it counted. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 7 video game villains that were the hero all along. And you know the drill by now, say hi to me here in the live chat and put your suggestions for next week's episode down in the comments section below. But with that in mind, let's get on with this list, shall we? Number 7, Donkey Kong. So we begin this list with arguably the granddaddy of all video game villains, the one and only irate ape, Donkey Kong. His design and games are iconic, and who can forget that he's also one of the earliest examples of a video game villain and has spawned countless others in his wake. Except, however, and yes, that was my best Columbo impression, there is one small problem with labeling him as a villain, because if you read into his origin and backstory, you'll find that he's anything but. For you see, a key aspect that many leave out of the Donkey Kong narrative is that Donkey Kong is actually being abused by Mario, which led to his air quotes villain outburst. I know that it seems absolutely mad to say this, but it's printed as clear as day in the game's manual, which lays out that DK is actually Mario's pet, who he's been mistreating. Suddenly, everything you thought you knew about the game has been flipped on its head. I mean, it's like when you were playing Braid and you found out that Tim was actually the villain all along. And no, I don't feel bad about spoiling that game. It's been out for years. You should have played it by now. And now you can't help but see old Jumpman over here maniacally twirling that soup strainer mustache of his as he laughs and whips that poor old ape. Hell, maybe Pauline's cry for help at the beginning of each stage actually isn't for Mario, but to the police, alerting them to the danger that he's putting them both in. Maybe she's trying to escape from that. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely reading too much into that at this point, but still, probably wrong to label DK as a straight up and up villain and more of a misunderstood hero. Number 6, Captain Quark, Ratchet & Clank Remake. Now this entry is actually a little strange because unlike others on this list who recognise the forces of good late into their villain career, Captain Quark actually has 2 villain redemption arcs thanks to the original Ratchet & Clank game receiving a pseudo remake / video game film tie-in, which actually addresses his events differently. I tell you, there's enough face turns here to get even the Big Show sweaty under his neck folds. In the Ratchet & Clank universe, you'd have had to have been living under a rock to not have heard the name of Captain Quark, a monstrously muscled specimen who has personally dug the graves of evildoers with his chin of justice, which made his surprise betrayal in the original game something of a shock to players, and to his number one fan Ratchet. Taking a fat payday and eliminating the competition that he saw in Ratchet's heroism, Quark sided with Drek, but was ultimately defeated by Ratchet in both the original and the remake. Yet it's here where Quark's paths actually diverge, because in the original timeline he goes on to become some sort of like secondary antagonist, a bit of a bumbling boob who kind of just makes things worse until he has a full face turn in Up Your Arsenal. But in the remake he recognizes Ratchet's heroism and sides with the forces of good thereon. So that's great. He even names him the new leader of the Rangers, so that is in effect 2 happy endings for the price of 1. That's almost as good as getting half-price antifungal ointment with each purchase of your own personal hygienator. That's a reference to the game where he sells a shitty product called a hygienator. Very funny, Jules. Number 5, The Arbiter, Halo 2. So when it comes to hating everything that humanity stands for, the role of Arbiter might as well come with a business card that is just comprised of a single image of somebody kicking your nan in the face. Because boy howdy does this massive mandibled lad despise Master Chief and all of his mates, and across the multiple Covenant elites who have held this title, the Arbiter has become a figure of fear for humanity, as its arrival usually means certain death for all those not willing to bend a knee to the prophets. And this is why it was actually quite bizarre to put the player in the shoes of Thel 'Vadam in Halo 2 and see things from his perspective, especially when it turned out that the role of the Arbiter isn't actually a position of honor at this point in time, but it's a title that one carries out of shame. Kinda like being a Conservative MP. That's satire. In Vadam's case, his prior failures caused the prophets to sentence him to carry the title, and by extension, their word into battle against those looking to detract from their great mission. And as this character, we the player put down insurrections and battled against those that we knew were actually in the right. The prophets were lying to their followers, and Thel was just caught up in their vortex of hate. Thankfully, our time as a sympathetic villain in the form of the Arbiter in Halo 2 came to an end pretty quickly, because soon enough he recognized the lies of the prophets and sided with Master Chief to help humanity and the rest of the universe from becoming extinct. Number 4, Knuckles. So, as a kid, was there anything as cool as Sonic the Hedgehog? Joe? No. Joe's editing this episode, by the way, so give him some love. He was a rude dude with a toot who don't take no guff and who has got all the stuff. He was basically the oversaturated sugar rush encapsulation of the 1990s, and we loved him for it. Yet for many, their world came crumbling down the moment that Knuckles the Echidna hit the stage, in a very literal sense, within the opening moments of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, as here we were presented with a character with a badass design and even more tood. And as a kid, you had to go through this personal dilemma. Who am I going to root for? Am I going to have to change my Sonic the Hedgehog wallpaper to that of Knuckles? Am I about to have a screaming match with my mate outside of the art class in the playground over which is the coolest Sonic character? Lol, no one's picking Tails. Plus, it turns out that we didn't even need to feel guilty about rooting for the bad guy in this instance, because Knuckles was actually just duped by Dr. Robotnik into thinking that Sonic was trying to steal the Master Emerald, a precious artifact that Knuckles has sworn to protect. In essence, this makes him the true hero of this tale, because he did his job bloody well. He actually stopped Sonic and made him look like a right boob in the process, and then he just stands there looking cool as hell. Sonic man, you got mugged off. Number 3, Boris, Dodgeball Academia. Now, school is hard, there's no doubt about that. You got to deal with homework, stern teachers, and of course, bullies. And if I've learned anything about bullies from 1980s US films, kids up and down the country are being called dweebs and being pushed into bins and then being told that you're dead meat, which just sounds awful, especially as a vegan. However, I guess things could be worse, as Dodgeball Academia proves, because this game gives the bullies the ability to not only throw dodgeballs at your face, but also ones made out of pure fire, electric, and poison. That does not sound safe. And while there are several contenders to the throne, the biggest and the baddest is Boris, a kid who looks like he's about 10 years too old for the class that he's in, and about as many years more skilled in combat than his other students. Across your journey, he'll appear to mock, berate, and sometimes absolutely blast you into base elements with his dodgeball skills. Hell, he even destroyed the principal's car by throwing it onto the roof just for a bit of a laugh. You can imagine him at the bully meetings just kind of sitting there as they're all talking about tales of just being like, oh yeah, I turned the clocks forward so we could go home early, or I set off the fire alarm, or I covered the banisters in mayonnaise or something like that. And he's just like, I threw car on roof. And they're just like, sorry, what? However, despite his tough exterior, it turns out that Boris is key to one of the most heartfelt and honest moments of the entire game, as he reveals to the frustrated and angry Nico, who is trying to force his powers to emerge in order to become the best dodgeball player at any cost, that he himself was born without any latent powers and that the rest of the class takes for granted. Boris only got to the top because he trained, he was patient, and because he believed in himself, which immediately shatters the tough guy persona and reveals a young man who had to grow up without parents and who looks after his sister, protecting her from everything at the expense of him becoming hardened to the rest of the world. And he even apologizes for being mean after this revelation. So in short, he's an absolute legend. Number 2, Crunch Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex. Seriously, when will Cortex and Embryo learn of their mistakes? It's like, no matter how many times they try to take the local wildlife, forcefully evolve it to become part of their super creepy super armies, they never learn that they always rebel and will take them down. And yet they still keep going. After Crash rebelled against them and destroyed their plans the first time, Coco was created and subsequently escaped. But clearly believing in the adage of third time's the charm, Cortex went back to the well once more and created Crunch Bandicoot, a seemingly unstoppable force for evil that was further empowered by the elemental masks found within Wrath of Cortex. And let's make no bones about it, Crunch was here to bloody break them. No matter what Crash throws at Crunch, he seems to shrug off his defeats with only minor scratches, which in turn led to bigger battles down the line. Yet there's one form of damage that Crunch apparently was weak to, and that was emotional ones that were caused by Cortex himself, as come the close of the game, Crunch has all but turned against his creator after being berated and abused. And here's the thing with pets, and I guess by extension genetically altered bandicoots, there's no such thing as bad pets, just kind of bad owners, so unfortunately he was a product of his upbringing. Yet his soul was clearly so pure that even as indoctrinated as he was, Crunch was finally able to break free, and went on to become a role model for children and older brother to the Bandicoot siblings. And if that ain't a hero, I don't know what is. And number 1, DJ OCTAVIO, SPLATOON franchise. Now, whether you're a kid now or indeed a squid now, there's one thing that all splat heads know above anything else, and that's that DJ OCTAVIO is a rotter through and through, with a heart as black as his sickly, stinky ink. After all, only a true devotee to the devil would be interested in trying to steal the great Zapfish and by extension power to the surface of the planet, right? Well, let's just think about this for a second. Yes, that is the second Columbo impression, and no, it's not any better, because if you take a look at the events from his perspective, well, DJ is a bloody hero. After the rising sea levels covered most of the Earth's landmass and forced survivors to fight for territory, OCTAVIO was a general and long-standing friend of Captain Cuttlefish. However, thanks to the Great Turf War ending badly for his species, he was forced to live underground whilst the Inklings dominated the surface. And after many years below, power began to run out for his people, and so the DJ made a push to steal the Zapfish in order to keep his community alive. In essence, this is a tale of a hero just trying to give his people a fair shot at life. Now, admittedly, he goes about things in rather underhanded ways, but these are actions born out of desperation over evil. And things are furthered in Splatoon 3 when it turns out that he's motivated to violence because he thinks the Inklings have stolen his army and his friends, before then being turned to full ally in the final battle when he appears once more to offer assistance to the player and stop Mr. Grizz from taking over our turf instead of just his. So it turns out that he was a good squid thing all along. Hooray! And you know what? We welcome him as an ally. Big up, you mate. And there we go, my friends. Those were 7 video game villains that were heroes all along. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below, as well as your suggestions for next week's episode. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, and you can follow Joe over here. Ooh, look at his little handles over there. Delicious stuff. Mwah. Thank you for editing this week's episode, Joe. Give yourself some love right now. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Sometimes in life we can view ourselves as being the villains. We can be too hard on ourselves, both mentally and physically, so I urge you, my friend, today to just give yourself a bit of a break. You're an absolute ledge. You deserve all the best things in life, like love, happiness, and success, and I want you to go out there and smash your life goals today, because you ain't a villain, you are a hero. Big up, big bless, big love, my friend, and I will see you next time on Tues Your Own Adventure, the medieval themed format.